Well, hello world, welcome to Raccoon Point Studios. I'm Sean Bombs, and today we're going to master a track in Logic Pro using Logic's stock plugins. The reason I'm even doing this video is because my stepson has been home from college for the summer, and he asked me to help him with some mastering of an EP he's working on, and he uses Logic Pro exclusively, and he doesn't have any third-party plugins. He only has native instruments and Superior Drummer and some other software synth type of plugins, but nothing for mastering, no third-party limiters, compressors, clippers, or anything like that. I wanted him to have a template, a starting point, a signal chain, you know, something that I might do, or something to get him close to his target loudness or clarity or whatnot. And I thought it was actually interesting that the results I got with it. So being that his music's not copywritten just yet, I am going to do a song from me and my wife's band, the 1-2s, and we're going to do the same kind of processing with Logic's plugins on this track. So, and this is copywritten, so I don't have to worry about it. So that being said, I am going to do an A-B comparison between the unmastered and mastered track, and then I'm going to do another comparison where I have them somewhat level matched, so you can hear what the processing is doing for the mastered track and have it comparable, so you're not just hearing the loudness of it. And then I'm going to go through the chain of what I did and how I got to where I got. And just bear in mind that everything I did is pertaining to this track. Everything is subject to change, but some of the order of everything I did is pretty close to what I would normally do even with other plugins. So let's start with the unprocessed. So the pink has all the mastering chain on it, and yellow has nothing. And then this mastered is what I already printed inside the Logic session, so we could A/B at a volume that's close. All right, so here we go. Here's the unprocessed. And then here is the mastered. Now I stopped it just because I wanted to warn you it's going to be like 6 dB louder. So hopefully it doesn't take your head off. You might turn your volume down a little bit. Who knows? So I'm warning you now. Alright, so you can hear it's a lot louder. When I'm mastering, I'm just trying to get it a little bit louder, a little bit clearer, make sure that there's no low end issues where anything's woofing out or anything like that. So now I want to go to the unprocessed to the mastered version, but I have level matched them as best as I could because, you know, I squeezed the dynamic range out in the master, so it's kind of hard. They're going to have the same peak, and you know, you're trying to get the same RMS, but it's really hard to match that. So Don't even come in the comments with no nonsense about it's not level matched, okay? Thank you. So this is unprocessed, and I'm just going to go right between both of them. All right, so the bottom is the master, the purple. I just want you to also see the difference in what the waveform of the mix looks like compared to what the mastered looks like, where you can see it's just flat across where these peaks are compared to the unmastered. And also this is compensated with the clip gain, so I'm going to put that back to 0. That's what it actually looks like mastered. So before I show you the chain, the first thing that I did was find a metering plugin in Logic that would help me to have a visual representation of what was going on. At first I found the loudness meter, which is useful, but I wanted to have a representation for my stepson to see what was going on in the frequencies as well. So this thing's very useful. I tend to master at a target level of around between 12 and 10 somewhere. It really depends on the genre. If it's house music or electronic dance music, if you will, I will a lot of times be able to get it even louder because there's not a lot of dynamic as far as like the kick drum is usually, you know, steady and not, you know, there's not as much variety as far as the hits go, as far as the transients go, because, you know, it's perfect. Let me just show you what goes on in here. And again, the volume of the master is louder, so take that into consideration when I hit the play button. And I want you to look at the LUFS, which is an average or loudness metering type of thing. And you'll see that up here you'll see the numbers change, and I'm hitting between 11 and -10 somewhere. And then over here you have your peak and RMS, which is also very useful. But the LUFS is supposed to be a lot more accurate as far as a loudness meter. So we have that, and then over here you have all your frequencies, so you can see that visually. So I'm okay with that. Could I push that up a little bit more? Probably, but it requires a lot more finessing and a lot more levels to the thing. I was trying to keep it simple as I could. It's a lot of information to take in one sitting or two sittings, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, what I started with was the channel EQ. Now, I'll usually roll off 30 and below. You know, it really depends on what it is. So I look for frequencies that I'm not going to miss later on. So I'm cutting some things out. I want it to be so when I put the EQ in and out, I'm not hearing a major difference at this portion, because I'm just trying to cut stuff out that can be noisy once compression and limiting and all that stuff. I'm looking in certain ranges that I can take a little bit out, dip a little bit, so when I do compress, that's one less thing I got to worry about coming up in the noise. I'm sure everybody's got their own little way of doing things, but that's just how I've been doing it for a little while now. And I won't say I'm a mastering engineer. That's not my main thing, but I do it. So this is what happens these days when you have to do everything, you know what I'm saying? So go from tracking, mixing, producing, and mastering, and videos, shooting videos. So that's what I do. There's my, thing, and you can see these are my little cuts. They're like 2 dB here, and they're all very narrow. Just taking out just a little bit, 3 dB. And if I take all this off real quick and just take this in and out, we'll see if we hear a big difference, all right? If anything, it sounds a tiny bit clearer because I'm taking out from this 75 hertz and then this other one at 232 hertz, which can have a little bit of that mud there. And then, around this 1K, I'm taking out a nice chunk of there because there's usually a lot of noise there, a lot of whistling there. And then, same thing around 2,500. A lot of guitars have a whistle there. So, and this is a guitar oriented. So it's something that you won't really miss. It's not going to take it all away. You know what I'm saying? But it might help get me a little bit of headroom in the mix. Okay? So that's basically what I'm trying to do. Gain headroom without missing anything in the compression. And then I put on next, whoops, what the hell? The compressor. There we go. And I use this SSL style. I guess this is what it's supposed to be, vintage VCA. I'm assuming that's an SSL style bus compressor. And I'm not doing much here as far as compression, but I am gaining a little bit of low level detail in the overall mix. So I have a slow attack, 29 milliseconds, a very low ratio, 2:1. The release I have on auto. It's very subtle, but it does add a little bit more dimension and movement. Very, very subtle though. So then after that, I follow it with this exciter, and I had this up, I don't know, the harmonics here at like 65 on this color 2, and then I just sweeped around until I liked how it sounded and what it did. So, and then I dropped the harmonics back 30%. And let's listen to what that sounds like. It still might be a little heavy, but it definitely adds some cymbal goodness and some presence, I guess. So let's hear that in and out. So I feel like it definitely brought the hi-hat sizzle up a little bit, and it made the guitars a little bit more clearer in a way, or more present. Then after that, I followed that up with another compressor. I'm not really sure about this whole thing, but I put it on clip. I'm not compressing. You see the threshold is at 0.5. It's not doing anything though. So I just put the distortion on clip, and then I mess with this threshold a little bit on the limiter just to get a little bit of something. So let's see what that did. So as you can see, that needle only moves when there's the loudest snare hits. So I was hoping that I was getting a little bit of a dynamic range shrink there. That's what I was using it for at the time before I stumbled upon a video about this Bitcrusher that's coming up 2 moves later. But I couldn't find I didn't know what I could use as a hard clipper in Logic. And then I looked it up and found a video, and if I can find that video in my history, I will link it down below to give that creator the credit they deserve for that, because I wouldn't have known this trick unless I found that video. So that's what I did here, and then next I followed this up with another EQ, which is Logic's EQ again, and for this I was adding presence and a little bit of more high end for clarity here, and I got 1.4 dB at 10 kilohertz, and then 23 1 dB, and at a broad, it's a broad bell, whatever. So, and then a little dip at 187, just a half a dB, and to help with the low mid. So let's hear what that sounds like. So again, it's bringing up some presence, bringing up a little bit more in the high end, a little air to the whole thing. The snare sounds taller. I don't know what the right word for it is, but it just made it crack a little bit more without it being too much. And then taking out that little dip in the 187 hertz, 200 hertz area, it will clean up a little bit more mud after all that compression and all that stuff. So the next thing in the chain was this Bitcrusher, and again I will link down below if I can find the creator that helped me with this. He said resolution as high as it can go, 24-bit, awesome, and clip mode, and then just drop the clip level here down. I just went for the 0.4. I wanted to use what I thought was conservative settings on this because I don't have any visual feedback to let me know how many dBs of anything is getting clipped off. So I just really had to use my ears, which is fine. I mean, you should be using your ears. So I just listened, pushed into it until, you know, I got more level out of it and tried to hear if I was losing punch from my kick and my snare. And that's basically what I was listening for. Am I losing my drums at all? Let's check that out real quick without it. So you can see that it is not going above 0.4 here, and I have this clip level at 0.4, so it's holding it there, and I got 4 dB louder from using that. So the last thing in the chain is the limiter. It's always the last thing in the chain, and it's the adaptive limiter. And I don't know if there's any other controls in this, but I am not mad at it because I like simple. I really like simple. I'm not, you know, there are some plugins that have deep controls that I do like, but a lot of times I want simple stuff, you know, and couldn't be any more simpler. So as a rule of thumb, my output ceiling is always at negative 0.3 dB. For this song, after that Bitcrusher, I just gained it by 2 dB, and I'm at the loudest snare hit. It's limiting by 2 dB, but not every single hit. I try to do like a 1 to 2 dB, and that's that. So here we go. So I'm cool with that. So if you can see, I have around -10, -11 between there, and then same the RMS is between -12 and -13. And before I started using LUFS, I would go for that -12, -13 on my RMS anyway. So that's kind of a safe range for me. I know people get things a lot louder than that, and people use a lot more tricks than that, and that's fine and dandy, whatever makes it sound good. So that's the chain that I used. Hopefully somebody found this useful out there. This is not the end-all be-all. This is not the definitive way to master. There's more to mastering than just processing one single track. If you have a whole album to do, you can't just go for a target loudness and expect every song to be able to get there. So you have to also take into consideration the other songs and their sonics and trying to get them to be sounding like they're on one record. So you wouldn't want one song overly bright and loud and the other song a lot of low end and quiet. You know what I'm saying? So you're trying to find a common ground when you're talking about an album or a collective. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, if you found this useful, hit the like button so other people see it. If you're into this kind of content, subscribe. And if you want to stay notified, hit the bell. You know what I'm saying? It's free, costs you nothing, helps my channel. Alright? Peace.